Have you ever noticed how the funniest people you know rarely laugh at their own jokes? There's something strange about the kid who could always make the whole class erupt in laughter. The one who could diffuse any tension at the dinner table with a perfectly timed quip. The sibling who turned every uncomfortable silence into a comedy show. They seemed so effortless, so naturally gifted, so happy. But here's the paradox no one talks about. That child wasn't performing joy. They were performing survival. Because somewhere along the way, that child learned a devastating lesson. That their presence alone wasn't enough. That love had to be earned. That the room needed managing, and they were the only ones qualified for the job. So what really happens in the mind of a child who becomes the funny one? And why does that role follow them, like a shadow they can never quite outrun, into adulthood? The psychology of a child who was the funny one. YouTube video script, approx. 12 to 14 minutes. Opening hook. Have you ever noticed how the funniest people you know rarely laugh at their own jokes? There's something strange about the kid who could always make the whole class erupt in laughter. The one who could diffuse any tension at the dinner table with a perfectly timed quip. The sibling who turned every uncomfortable silence into a comedy show. They seemed so effortless, so naturally gifted, so happy. But here's the paradox no one talks about. That child wasn't performing joy. They were performing survival. Because somewhere along the way, that child learned a devastating lesson. That their presence alone wasn't enough. That love had to be earned. That the room needed managing, and they were the only ones qualified for the job. So what really happens in the mind of a child who becomes the funny one? And why does that role follow them, like a shadow they can never quite outrun, into adulthood? Music. Part 1. The birth of the performer. Let's start with a moment. Picture a child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting at a kitchen table. The air is thick. Mom and dad are fighting again, or maybe they are not fighting, which is somehow worse. Maybe there's a silence so heavy it presses against the child's chest like a weight. And then, without thinking, the child says something. Something silly. Something absurd. And just like that, someone laughs. The tension cracks. For one precious moment, the storm passes. That child just learned something their nervous system will never forget. I can control this. I can make the scary thing stop. This is how the funny one is born. Not from joy, but from necessity. In family systems psychology, this role has a name, the mascot. The mascot's job is to break tension and lighten the mood through humor or antics. They are typically the one desperately working to cover up the family's pain, to keep everyone distracted from what's really happening beneath the surface. But here's what's fascinating and heartbreaking. While they are entertaining everyone else, they are usually lonely, confused, and full of fear. Just as they divert others from feeling pain, they also avoid identifying their own emotions. Instead, they crack a joke, and the deeper underlying issues go unresolved. The applause becomes their armor. The laughter becomes their oxygen. And slowly, imperceptibly, the performance becomes indistinguishable from the self. The hypervigilant heart. Here's something most people don't understand about the funny child. They are not just naturally witty. They are watching. Always watching. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a state of heightened alertness where a person is constantly scanning their environment for potential threats. For children in chaotic or emotionally unpredictable homes, this becomes a survival mechanism. The child learns to read every flicker of their parents' expression, every shift in tone, every pause that lasts a beat too long. They become experts at detecting the approaching storm before anyone else even notices the clouds gathering. And here's what's remarkable. This exhausting vigilance becomes a superpower. The funny child develops an almost supernatural ability to read the room. They know exactly when to deploy the joke, precisely how to shift the energy, the perfect moment to make someone smile before they slip into despair. Research on childhood trauma has found that this creates a pattern of hyperawareness where children learn to read and monitor every nuance of their caregiver's behavior, their mood, changes in tone, facial expressions. It happens naturally because as children, we are subconsciously protecting ourselves even when we don't realize it. So when you watch a comedian with perfect timing, or a friend who always knows exactly what to say, you are often watching someone who spent their childhood as an emotional meteorologist, tracking systems and patterns that could determine whether dinner would be peaceful or catastrophic. The gift and the wound are the same thing. The performance that never ends. But here's where it gets complicated. The funny child doesn't just perform at home. They perform everywhere. School becomes a stage. Friendships become audiences. Every room is a potential crisis that needs managing. Research on class clowns has found something fascinating. These children are often remarkably empathic, but they are held back by a pervasive need to avoid pain by escaping into a childlike world. As they get older, other people rarely take them seriously or view them as competent. And this creates a painful double bind. The very thing that earns them love, the jokes, the lightness, the endless entertainment, is also what prevents people from seeing them as fully human. They become a function rather than a person. Think about what this teaches a child. I am valuable when I am useful. I am loved when I am performing. My worth is measured in laughs. The funny one learns that they exist to serve others' emotional needs. Their job is to make you feel better. And somewhere along the way, their own feelings become inconvenient, dangerous, even something to hide behind the next punchline. Sigmund Freud called humor the highest of the defense mechanisms, suggesting it allows people to express difficult emotions in a way that feels safe. The joke becomes a container for everything that can't be said directly. The sadness that has no words, the fear that has no voice, the loneliness that has no audience. The cost of being everyone's relief. Let's talk about what this costs. Because make no mistake, there is a cost. There is always a cost. Research has examined comedians extensively, and the findings tell a striking story. Studies have found that professional comedians were more likely to have experienced traumatic events in their childhood. Their early lives were often marked by suffering, isolation, and feelings of deprivation, where humor offered relief from their pain and a defense against inescapable anxiety. The paradox has a name: the sad clown. The contradictory association between comedy and inner turmoil, depression, anxiety, a persistent sense of emptiness that no amount of laughter can fill. But here's the truth that rarely gets spoken. This isn't a paradox at all. It makes perfect sense. The child who learns that their job is to manage everyone else's emotions never learns to sit with their own. The child who uses humor to escape pain never develops the skills to actually process it. They crack a joke, and the underlying issues remain unresolved. In hiding from their emotions, they fail to become acquainted with themselves. As adults, they often struggle to have serious conversations about emotions. They continue to deflect pain with humor and good-naturedness. When things get too real, too heavy, too close, they reach for the safety of the punchline. And the people around them? They often don't even notice. Because the funny one is so good at their job that no one thinks to ask, "How are you actually doing?" The weight of unseen sadness. Here's something I want you to understand if you were this child, or if you still are. Your humor saved you. It was brilliant. It was creative. It was the best strategy your young mind could devise in an impossible situation. You learned that if you could make someone laugh, you could make them stay. You could make them safe. You could make the terrifying unpredictability of your world just a little more bearable. But the same strategy that saved you then may be exhausting you now. Because here's what happens. The mascot grows up, but the role doesn't retire. The hypervigilance doesn't fade. The constant scanning for tension, the relentless pressure to perform, the bone-deep belief that your worth depends on your utility. It all comes with you. Research on family roles confirms this. The mascot may have difficulty connecting with negative emotions or conflict in adulthood, instead deflecting with humor. They often don't feel as if they can make mistakes or mess up, because their whole identity has been built around keeping everyone else okay. And so the adult who was the funny child often finds themselves exhausted in ways they can't explain. They're the life of the party who goes home and stares at the ceiling. The friend everyone calls when they need cheering up, who has no one to call themselves. The performer who doesn't know how to exist without an audience. The loneliness isn't beside the humor. It lives inside it. When the laughter becomes a wall, and this is where it gets delicate. Because humor can be medicine, but it can also be a wall. Psychologists distinguish between humor that heals and humor that hides. The first type allows people to process difficulty, to find meaning in pain, to connect with others through shared experience. This kind of humor builds bridges. But there's another kind. The kind that keeps people at a distance. That deflects intimacy before it can get too close. That treats every serious moment as a threat to be neutralized. When humor functions as avoidance, it can halt the healing process altogether. It can keep the pain hidden, not just from others, but from yourself. The former funny child often doesn't even realize they're doing it. Someone asks a genuine question about their feelings, and before they know it, they've turned it into a bit. Someone tries to offer comfort, and they've already pivoted to making the other person laugh instead. It's not manipulation. It's not dishonesty. It's protection. A pattern so deeply ingrained that they don't even notice the walls going up. But here's what I want you to know. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to manage the room to deserve a place in it. Your presence, your real presence, without the act, is enough. The path to genuine expression. So what does healing look like for the former funny one? It starts with something that might feel terrifying: putting down the performance. This doesn't mean abandoning humor. Your wit, your timing, your ability to find lightness in darkness, these are genuine gifts. They are part of who you are. The goal isn't to stop being funny. The goal is to stop needing to be funny. The first step involves challenging the essential despair that lies at the heart of this role, the belief that life's problems cannot be faced directly, only escaped. The funny one needs to stop treating their own suffering as something to deny, minimize, and turn into humor. Instead, they can begin to treat it as something worthy of their own attention and respect. This might mean allowing yourself to be unfunny sometimes, to sit in silence that isn't uncomfortable, to answer, "How are you?" with something other than a deflection. It might mean letting someone see you without the armor, letting them offer comfort without turning it into a bit, letting yourself need something from another person without immediately paying it back with entertainment. And here's what's beautiful. The same qualities that made you the funny one can become genuine strengths. That hypervigilance? It's actually emotional attunement. The ability to read a room, to sense what others are feeling, to respond with sensitivity and care. These are gifts when they are not driven by fear. The empathy you developed while scanning for threats can become compassion when you are no longer in survival mode. The creativity you use to escape pain can become genuine connection when you are not running from yourself. The laugh that finally means joy. So let me circle back to where we started. The funniest people you know rarely laugh at their own jokes. And maybe now you understand why. Because for so long, humor wasn't about joy. It was about control. It was about safety. It was about being seen as valuable in the only way that seemed to work. But here's what I want to leave you with. If you were the funny one, you were never broken. You were brilliant. You took an impossible situation and found a way through it. You developed skills that most people never acquire. You learned to navigate emotional minefields before you learned long division. And now, maybe now, you can let that strategy rest. You can discover what happens when you are not responsible for everyone's comfort. What it feels like to enter a room without immediately calculating how to shift its energy. What it means to let yourself be seen, truly seen, without the performance. The child who learned that laughter reduces tension deserves to find the places where tension doesn't need reducing at all. The spaces where they can just exist. Where love isn't earned through entertainment. Where silence isn't dangerous. Where the laugh, when it finally comes, actually means joy. You've been watching Mind Flip. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, who's spent their whole life being the funny one, maybe this is worth sharing. Until next time, be gentle with yourself.